Welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast with author Sarah F. Hathaway and co-host Chen Gibson, blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sarah F. Hathaway and Chen Gibson.
Hello, and welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. This is episode number 318, season 10, episode 9. So I'm going solo today. Welcome to the show. We are just in a mad dash getting ready for prepper camp, and that has Chen detained. On that same note, want to let you guys know that next week we will not have a show because we will be at prepper camp and we'll be busy. So we'll see you the week after that, and then we'll have all kinds of good news about what's going on. All right, well, we're going to jump right into it today and kind of hammer through some information for you guys. I have a packed show ready and can't wait to share it with you. Last week on the bitter end story, Swenson was on the move south and he was attacked by a group of assailants trying to get the baby from him. It didn't work, but Dolores ended up shot. And all kinds of bad stuff went down in Swenson's world, which is not always a bad thing. But so this week, we're catching back up with Dexter, and we're going to see how life's treating Dexter. So without any further ado, we're going to get into the story. For all those listening live on Twitch, go ahead and check out the recording to hear the episode. Also, you can become a member at changingearthseries.com. And I have all of the audiobook. I think I'm even a week ahead right now, just so I stay on top of it. Chapter by chapter, the bitter end audiobook as we go through the chapters. So if you're a member over there, you can check out the information anytime. All right, let's go ahead and get into the story. Chapter 9. Dexter sat in his office, mindlessly pushing papers around. A chair squeaked beneath him as he nervously rocked back and forth. Hearing footsteps at his door, he eagerly looked up. As the door opened, Johnny's eyes met his. Dexter immediately sensed the disappointment looming there. "They didn't make it, did they?" Dexter inquired. "No, Dex. Swenson and his men killed them all," Johnny replied. "Swenson was with the baby?" Dexter asked, surprised. "He was," Johnny admitted. "He didn't go with the Supreme General's caravan?" Dexter fretted. Johnny shook his head negatively. "They were behind it in unmarked cars. One of his female fighters took out Jesse. He almost made it." "Was it Ann?" Dexter pondered. "I don't know, Dex," Johnny told him. "The scouts don't know her like we do." "That's why I should have gone myself. Did Swenson keep moving south?" Dexter wondered. "He's holding up in Vernon for now. From what I gathered from the scouts, Dolores was shot," Johnny admitted. "Swenson halted to stabilize her and a couple more of his personal guards." Dexter stared down at the table for a moment. "I'm sorry to hear about Dolores, but I gave her the opportunity to get out. If she had taken it, she would have never been in that position," Dexter declared, scratching his head deep in thought. "My baby is right across the Ogallala, Johnny." "It doesn't make a difference, Dex. It's amazing we got a team in there at all. Their full force is heading south. The confusion was our smokescreen." "I should have gone myself." Dexter cursed his decision to send fighters in his stead. "And accomplish what? Killing yourself and your team?" Johnny countered. "He's my son. I would proudly die for him." "Everyone is scared of Swenson." "Well, I'm not, Johnny. I want my baby. If I could get to Swenson, I could kill him," Dexter insisted. Johnny didn't argue. Dexter's look had turned to the crazy one he brought back with him from his time in Swenson's compound. Deep down, Johnny believed Dexter could kill Swenson if it was just Swenson, but it never was. What? Dexter asked, wondering what Johnny was thinking. I believe you can, Dex, Johnny admitted. But how would we get you in there or draw him out? It's impossible. So was rescuing Gear and Michelle, but we did it, Dexter reminded him. What about the tunnels? Johnny asked, remembering a way they escaped Dallas in the past. The feds were walling them up, remember? Dexter asked. Did they? Johnny wondered. We went underground. Do you think they are? Texas has a much higher water table. I don't know. Dexter pondered the question. Do you think we could take him and Brady? There's no reason for Swenson to go that far west. He'll be taking his women to Dallas. That's where he's setting up the capital, Johnny countered. True. Damn it. We have to get in there, Dexter cursed in frustration. In where? Bennett asked, poking his head into the room. He had heard Dexter's raised voice in the hall. Nowhere, it's nothing, Bennett, Dexter assured him, wishing his mentor hadn't overheard the conversation. Delta Squad never checked in, Bennett continued, knowing something was up. Dexter looked at his desk. The young man had made the decision to put the fates of that squad in his hands, and even Bennett didn't know about the secret mission they were sent on. What did you do, Dex? Bennett demanded. Johnny stood off to the side of the desk as Bennett's energy consumed the room. I sent them after my boy, Dexter admitted quietly. Did they succeed? Bennett wondered. No, Dexter confessed. I should have gone myself. They got close enough to kill Swenson. Bennett's vein in his forehead bulged with frustration. Johnny, can you give us a minute? Sure, Johnny said, leaving the office. Dexter, you sent those fighters out to die. Deep down, you knew the moment you gave the order, didn't you? Bennett asked. Yes, Dexter admitted. Bennett paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. I can't have you going rogue with your teams, Dex. If I can't trust your command decisions, you'll do what, Bennett? This is my town. Don't you forget who built it, Dexter snapped angrily. You are not T.J. Swenson, Dexter. But if you start down this road, you are in serious danger of becoming him, Bennett replied, listening to his words. You think it was easy for me to wash away my emotions when that asshole had Michelle? Bennett asked. No, Dexter said, remembering the pain that he watched Bennett go through. But he's so close. Son, we are fighting for our lives here and the lives of all these people. It's much bigger than me, you, or your son. We're fighting the battle on so many fronts, it's a miracle this city still stands. And you send a whole team out after a child? I'm sorry for what happened, Dex, but it was your choice to go in there. You broke orders when you left, you got caught, and the pattern isn't changing. Look at what you helped to create, Bennett insisted, looking around the expanse. You're right about one thing. This is your city, and these people need you. You chose me to lead the forces and continue your training. Now I need you to stick to the timetable and wait until the moment is right. Frustrated with the logic of Bennett's explanation, Dexter stood up and kicked over his trash can. He knows what he has, and he knows you'll come, Bennett continued. Once he has you, he knows the rest of your family will come. And he will have won the war. We'll lose everything. Or I'll kill him, Dexter barked angrily. Maybe, but that's a big maybe with serious consequences if it doesn't work out, Bennett responded. You know your mother would do anything for you. I know, Dexter admitted. The memory of his mother breaking to Swenson's pandering while Yuri held a knife to his own throat echoed through his mind. He shut his eyes for a moment, trying to dispense the memory. He sat back down at his chair and looked up into Bennett's eyes, trying to force his rationale to overrule his emotions. "How's the eastern border holding?" Dexter asked, changing the subject. Bennett nodded to the young man, happy to see the wisdom overrun his emotional turmoil. "Spotty and cold. We're trying to build enough shelters to house troops for the effort. But when the line keeps moving, it's challenging," Bennett admitted. "And the Ogallala?" Dexter asked. "It's freezing over solid. The ferry captains have 2 channels trying to transport people, but they won't last long. We are already planting explosives in the ice. If the feds try to cross, we'll blow the shit out of it," Bennett admitted with a smile. "I've got security tight after Javier's little escape and more troops stationed north. You should go talk with Reggie and see what the town needs." "I know the answer to that. Food," Dexter admitted, with the look of concern. "Jasmine's been helping him stay organized with the salvage teams." He paused for a moment, rising from his desk again. "You know I'm not happy about this situation." "I know, Dex, and I promise I'll look for an opportunity to get him," Bennett assured Dexter. "Have Harold confirm the status of the tunnels we used to escape from Dallas," Dexter requested. "I will. Now go enjoy some of your youth while you still have it," Bennett told him. Leaving his office with Bennett, Dexter headed down the underground corridor towards his room. Reaching for the doorknob, he hesitated. The baby was a constant source of disagreement between Megan and him, and Dexter wasn't sure he wanted to face that right now. He continued down the hall to the next room where his guards were housed. "Dexter!" Rob elated as the door opened. "What's up, bro?" Guy greeted him. "You don't stop by much anymore." "Just looking for some company," Dex admitted. "Sit down, have a beer," Grimes suggested, grabbing an extra chair. "The game is 5-card stud. You in?" Mojo asked, shuffling the cards in his hands. "Hell yeah," Dexter agreed, welcoming the distraction as he slammed down a beer. Grimes refilled his glass with a wide smile. They played and drank long into the night. Tipsy drunk with the night's indulgences, the young men jumped as the door opened. "Have you guys seen Dexter?" Megan asked with a scowl. Her eyes came to rest on her fiancé. "Megan," Dexter stammered, realizing he should have been home hours ago. His friends laughed at the scolding they knew was coming his way. "You're in it deep now, Dex," Johnny chuckled at his friend. Megan left in a huff, perturbed by their antics. "Thanks, guys," Dexter scolded them, almost falling down as he tried to stand quickly. The young men laughed harder at him, and Mojo fell out of his chair, causing the rest of the guys to go into hysterics. "Megan!" Dexter called down the hall as she stumbled through the door to their home. "You could have come and got me," Megan told him. "I would have liked to have some fun and play cards." Dexter entered their room behind her. "I'm sorry," Dexter professed, slurring his words. "I heard about your mission," Megan informed him snidely. Dexter looked at her curiously. "Bennett told you?" "I went looking for you. I thought you were still over at the gym," Megan told him. "Fucking Bennett," Dexter cursed. The alcohol left him little control over his usually carefully tempered demeanor. "You weren't going to tell me?" Megan wondered. "I would have told you when the time was right," Dexter assured her. "When?" she wondered. "I don't know." "We used to talk about everything," Megan reminded him. He remembered their easygoing conversations and longed for those days to return. But everything was so complicated now. He snapped back. "But all you want to do now is talk about my baby." "Because I know it's on your mind," she admitted. "I just wish I could help. I just need a break," Dexter said suddenly, lashing out at her. "From me?" Megan wondered. "Maybe," Dexter told her angrily. He turned and left out the door, slamming it behind himself. He stumbled down the hall, immediately regretting his decision to leave. Looking back, he hoped that Megan would chase after him, but she never did. He thought about rejoining his friends, but in his drunken fury, he resented their teasing. He wandered down the tunnel towards his parents' home. They never slept underground, even though their home would accommodate it. Erica wouldn't do it. Climbing the ladder to their home, he watched the fire burning low. Dexter stumbled across to it and shoved some more wood inside. He almost tripped over his own feet as he made his way back to the sofa, slumped down on it, and passed out.
Well, if you are live on Twitch and you haven't heard the story, man, stuff went down. Dexter sent the team out to get the baby, and the team failed miserably. Bennett was not too happy to hear that Dexter sent out that team when he knew that the chances of them succeeding was pretty much slim to nil. Not really the best move. But top on the list of concerns for the camp as the sun stays shrouded from the Yellowstone eruption is food supply. And I put a lot of thought into how would we grow food without the sun? And basically you're looking at a lot of lights to make that happen, which is a scary, scary prospect when you're dealing with trying to put everything back online, trying to get everything up and running, trying to, even produce light bulbs, have electricity to do that. How do you produce all that? Very kind of eerie world to be entering, but it's not an impossibility. And we've seen lots of little ice ages just from volcanic eruptions, smaller ones and things like that. So it's something that I think we need to be prepared for. Also, something else that we need to be prepared for is the upcoming food. Maybe not so drastically for the United States of shortages, but definitely inflation. And the food prices, if you haven't noticed, are kind of going crazy, and proteins are topping that list. It's questionable, whether it's really is the supply chain or if it's more of a producer issue, but we'll get into that. So I did a lot of research off the USDA website for this show, and food prices are up 3.4% higher than July of 2020. For restaurants, they're up 4.6% higher than July 2020. So I don't even know if you've noticed that, eating out is getting more and more expensive. It seems like even just to go to like a smaller mom and pop restaurant's costing you like $70, for four of you to eat there. It's definitely been limiting our ability to go out. I can't justify spending that when I know I could make it so much more efficiently at home. Bulk food prices are still obviously your best option when it comes to being able to affordably eat, as long as you have the room to store that food and use it, in a slower pace. I like to just buy a lot and then we don't go shopping for a month. Personally, I hate shopping too, so that has something to do with it as well. So food prices, even for at-home food, are 2.6% higher in July from 2020. July 21 to July 2020, we had a 2.6% increase. And I've been seeing that. I don't know if you've seen, like, the cans are getting smaller. It seems like, I saw asparagus the other day, a can, almost like $4 a can, which is just crazy. And I do love my asparagus, so that's really a bummer. Fresh fruit was up 4.9%, and fresh veggies were only up 0.4%. So if you're thinking about growing something in your yard and you really like to eat fruit like I do, I always have strawberry plants. We put in blueberries this year. And bring in those fresh fruits. They're easy to grow. They're beautiful plants. And they're so much better when you pick them yourself. So having a supply of your own fresh fruit is definitely a good idea. We also planted tons of fruit trees like apple, and we have a peach tree and a plum tree. So we're definitely looking at being able to shore up against those inflationary aspects. I don't know about grapevines, but man, my kid loves grapes, so that too. No food commodity on the list decreased this year. Everything went up across the board, every single item. That does not normally happen in a given year. So that tells you that we have stuff on the way. This is not just fear mongering or something of that nature. And I did a lot of shows on this in the past, but I wanted to step back a little and get back into some other preps along the way. But this issue is not something that's going to go away. We've had too many years of problematic growing seasons for this to just magically go away. In 2022, the forecasts are that food at home is going to go up by another 2.5%, and restaurants are bracing for a 3% to 4% increase. So it's just going to get more and more expensive to eat out. They're really struggling to keep products in their restaurants, even big chain restaurants that control their own supply, like McDonald's. They ran out of their shakes one day, and they have their own dairy farms. They have their own production. So it's interesting to see what's going on there. The largest increases from 2020 were beef and veal. They went up 9.6%. Pork went up 6.3%, and poultry went up 5.6%. So I did a show a while back on the corporatization of pork production and how a lot of these big corporations came in and they bought out the small farmers or price gouged till the farmers couldn't stay in business anymore. And then the corporations now own the product from, the shout from having babies all the way up to when they're processed. And the profits, if you look at the profit margins for the producers, they are just skyrocketing right now. So it's tough to say, what's going on there, but they've definitely figured out how to profit hugely off of the meat industry. And, is there a point when somebody steps in and goes, hey, enough is enough? Or are they going to push through this veggie agenda, this bug eating thing? I don't know if you've seen about the roach milk and all this kind of stuff, but I'm not drinking any roach milk, I'm lucky to be down here in Texas where we can source a lot of locally grown products. And I would encourage you to do so in your hometown, because I don't see this as a problem that's going away either. We'll get into what's happening in some other countries and whatnot, but it's one of our biggest exports too. And to see the prices going up like this is just insane. So in just June to July of 2021, beef and veal went up another 0.5%. Pork went up 2.2%. And chicken went up 1.9% in just 1 month. So if they can just gouge that, they can just do that in 1 month. Imagine what they can do in a year. Fish and seafood was also up 1.5%. Prices for dairy and oil are like your vegetable oil, stuff like that, are expected to increase 1.2%. Fats and oils are expected to increase 3 to 4%, and sugars and sweets are expected to go up 2 to 3%. Again, this has a lot to do with the global weather that we've been facing. Countries that export a lot of sugarcane, like Brazil, didn't have a great year. So you're going to see that reflected in the food prices. The Consumer Price Index for all items that have to do with getting food, including food, housing, and transportation, have increased 3.2% over 2020. So everything, the government's been doing lots of dole outs and stuff like that, but everything is going up in price, 3.2% overall. I've definitely been seeing it here as well as across the country. So everybody really... This is scary. This is brace for impact time. This is 50% higher than the average amount of annual inflation. And this trend is expected to continue through 2022. So even if you can handle the food costs with the cost of everything else going up at the same time, that's going to make that really, really challenging. So I was wondering, what is the government really doing about this? What are they doing? If I can see these forecasts and I'm just, Sarah Nobody out here researching the USDA websites and things like that, if I can see these obvious trends, then what's the government doing about it? Well, right now, government is encouraging farmers to grow carbon capturing fields instead of food. So they want to reduce the food supply that America is producing. Luckily, right now, these government incentives are not substantial enough to justify the change at this point. But Democrats are encouraging more tax dollars to be put towards these eco-conscious federal programs. And trust me, I'm the Changing Earth podcast. I'm all about living with nature and making sure that we're in a balance. But I also want to make sure everybody in the, gets fed. And this isn't just feeding the United States of America. This is feeding the world. So the USA, like I said, we help feed the world, and cutting the supply at home can have detrimental effects across the world. So it's really an interesting strategy for them to be taking, to say the least. As far as food exports, in 2022, $177.5 billion are projected to be made from income from our exports. In 2021, $173.5 billion was made. That's $9.5 billion over May's predictions. So we exported even more than we were anticipating, which is because, China got hit really hard. We actually have a fifth, our soil in the United States is much more growable than China's. And so 1 to 5 acres basically ours are better than China's as far as growing areas. A lot of what China produces, they're consuming themselves. And with the flooding and all the things they had going on, the swine flus, that kind of thing, their exports increased, or their imports increased. So our exports had to increase to help fuel, help feed their country. And same with Brazil, upticked as well. The biggest exports were soybeans, cotton, horticultural products like tree nuts. Tree nuts are really big. The United States actually grows a lot of tree nuts, and that's one of our biggest exports. Livestock, dairy, and poultry were forecasted to increase from 400 million to 36.8 billion in 2022. That is a huge increase. And so to be facing the rising prices at home, plus this expected uptick of exportation, the meat supply should be something that we are just increasing and increasing here, because we have the land to grow the food, to feed the animals, to produce the animals. And as the economic status of the Chinese citizens improve, they're actually eating more dairy, more meat products. So there's more of a demand for that, and that's why we're looking at this huge increase. Exports going specifically to China are going to go up up to 39 billion, which is a $2 billion increase from 2021. So you can see that they've been hit hard, and the world's kind of stepping up to make sure that the Chinese are fed as well. Imports versus exports. USA, China, Mexico, and Canada lead the world with the greatest exports. All of these countries export more than $20 billion in food exports. As far as imports, USA, Canada, the EU, England, and Mexico are still the largest importers of food as well, amounting to over $2 billion or $20 billion per country. So I found it interesting that, yes, we're one of the biggest exporters, but we're also one of the biggest importers. The reasoning behind that is simply, we have such a variation of products available in our grocery stores. So yes, we're growing a certain amount of staples, a certain amount of products, and we're exporting those, but we're also importing a ton of food as well to help keep that variety available at your table for all different cultures to be able to find what they want to eat. On the whole, China is still exporting more than importing, so that's a good thing. The more that there's a call for them to have to import food, the scarier world prices get, and smaller players get really priced out. One of the big problems that's going on with our food supply is still in the shipping costs. So cross country freight went from like $7,000 to $9,000 a couple of years ago to $12,500 now. Companies producing 5.4 million shipping, like the 5.4 million 20-foot shipping containers. But there's still this, they really call it a container dislocation problem. So where are these containers going? If they're producing 5.4 million containers, why do we have a shortage? Where are the containers going? It's just really, really interesting question, because that should not be an issue if they're all being produced like that. And if the trade is not happening as rapidly as it was, then that really shouldn't be a problem. So where are all these shipping containers going? If you have information, please go ahead and reach out. Let me know, leave a comment, because it's very, very curious what's happening with all these shipping containers. In 1 week, this is an astounding statistic. In 1 week, the increase in shipping containers from August 2nd to August 11th went from 16K to 20K. So that's a $4,000 increase in just 1 week. I mean, there has to be something behind this. What is going wrong? The containers are produced mainly in China. So it looks like there's a call for somebody to start producing containers somewhere else so that we can get all this back on track. If that's where the bottleneck is established, then that's something that has to be overcome by ourselves as a culture. Any entrepreneurs out there? Get on the shipping container production line, because they are making money hand over fist on these things. The CAM American Senior Director of Global Supply Chain, Michael Murphy, estimated that our shipping container problem and the rising costs of shipping and all of the logistic problems, he was hoping that it was going to be over by 2020, but now it's, or 2022, but now it's forecasted to be in existence out to mid 2022, which I don't know if that's even going to be the case. It depends on what happens with all these variants in the weather. So, as I mentioned, current weather and variants are fueling this problem even further. The Delta variant hit Asia, making it hard to staff shipping vessels. And also deadly floods in China and Germany have further decimated the global food supply. China's coal shipping has also been majorly affected by the flooding. Right at a time when they're going to be coming into winter, they're going to really need that coal supply. So that's not a good factor either. And these background problems will actually drive up food supply, because you don't have as much energy really to keep everything flowing like it needs to be. It's one of the biggest problems that I see with on-time delivery is that, okay, when there's a problem, when there's a hiccup, then what happens to your on-time delivery? Now you don't have products in the store. That's something I've been talking about for a lot of years. You know, they say, most cities have a 3-day food supply. Well, when disaster hits or everybody goes into like a panic buying scenario, that is gone. That is gone in minutes. And then now you don't have backup inventory to put back in there. You're dead in the water because you're waiting on your first day delivery, next day delivery. The biggest food producers. USA and China supply chains buckling. So we've seen it. We've seen it. It's happening. It's been happening since 2020. This doesn't just affect our two countries. It affects the whole global economy, because we, as these two countries, are the biggest importers, and like 40%, I believe, of the commerce, food traffic and all that is fueled by our two countries. So if that buckles, now the whole world sees it, where there's problems with getting their supply out. There's problems with getting their supply in. The biggest food producers in the world are the U.S., but we had droughts in the West. We've had flooding. We've had these frosts at a weird time of the year. It's really been nationwide. So there's been supply chain disruption there. China's had their severe flooding. They've had mega storms happening over there. They've had earthquakes that are going on over there. And it's definitely affecting them. they consume most of what they produce. So, when their own food supply, that's when the exports, they're calling for more imports and things like that. So they're still stable. Everything's looking good for now, but with the price increases, with the reduction in the actual supply, we're going to see if that lasts into the future. India has been flooding. They actually produce a lot of food over in India. However, they have a lot of people to feed too. So their import-export really gets nullified because a lot of what they produce, they are consuming. And they have seen some severe flooding this year. So they've got a lot of people over there that are going to need to be fed as well. Brazil was, was really hopeful that Brazil was going to step up and fill this void. But they've had their own droughts. And then right when the drought ended, they were getting hit by freezes and snow on coffee crops, which will have resonating effects as well. So you guys, the overwhelming message here is whatever you can buy and stock today will be worth it for tomorrow, because you're going to get it cheaper today, even with the price increases, than you will next year. So if you're looking to stock up on long-term food supply, go to preparewithchangingearth.com. That's preparewithchangingearth.com. I'm backed by My Patriot Supply, and they have some really good deals over there. They have some really great product. I've compared a lot of long-term survival food, and My Patriot Supply is one I'm proud to put my name to. And if you go to preparewithchangingearth.com and make your purchase there, you're going to help support the show. Well, I really hope you do that. I mean, it's something that I've done in my personal life. And, whatever you can afford, whenever you can afford it, is going to be worth your while. Okay, let's get into some changing Earth. So the sun has let off. We had a CME and uptick in solar activity. We really got hit with this double whammy on the 16th. It's really interesting because I'm going to show you some fascinating stuff that happened because of this. Right now, there's a southern incoming active region, which is producing Class C CMEs. They're minor. The Earth should be able to handle that really easily. It's not going to be like an emergency event or anything, hopefully. And there's a big northern filament at the top, but it's staying stable so far. So as long as nothing happens with either of those areas, we should be looking really good for this next week. So this solar wind and geomagnetic storms, they're really calming down now, but it was a 1-2 punch that we received on the 16th. As far as global weather, there's been a lot of flooding again. 17 died from severe flooding in Pakistan. Nigeria, 4 people are dead from torrential rains. India, 3 dead and 3 missing as 18 dams overflowed. France, southwestern France, they got 2 months worth of rain in 6 hours. That's incredible amount of rain, and their streets were just flooding. Indonesia, heavy rainfalls affected 11,839 people, and 2,570 homes were destroyed from this rain. 5 are dead in Malaysia from flash flooding. Milan in Italy got hit with some major flooding, and that's a really high dollar area. And then back here at home, Alexandria, Virginia, and D.C. saw their fair share of flooding this past week. In India, heavy rains left 24 dead after the rain persisted for 3 days, and 12 of those died from collapsing walls. So that's something I've really added to my list of what to do when crazy stuff is going on, basically. And, what to do during a tornado, what to do during a fire, what to do during a hurricane. Well, what to do when it's flooding. And one of the things that I've seen here in Texas and globally is people, when they are injured, it's usually from collapsing walls. These are usually exterior walls. So if you're in a flooding situation, I would advise moving to an interior area, kind of like when there's a tornado. Don't be sitting on an exterior wall that might go over, and that can wipe you out. On the 11th, there was this huge landslide in Mexico City that one side of this mountain just slid off. It killed one person and 10 are still missing. I haven't seen an update on that since the 11th, but that was some really crazy activity to happen. You know, the earth is in motion. We had some volcanic activity as well. There was 2 eruptions in Mexico at, I hate saying the weird names, Popocatépetl volcano. It threw ash 20,000 feet into the air. The Grimsvötn, I definitely can't say that. Grimsvötn, Iceland volcano is showing major signs of getting to eruption level. The lava cap keeps inflating, and this volcano could have a major climate impact on our planet. So we definitely have eyes on that one. The alert level at Sawansejima volcano in Japan went from a 2 to a 3 after the eruption at the Mount Otaki crater. It threw rocks like hundreds of meters away from that volcano. So really interested to see that again. And then Popocatépetl in Mexico also increased activity again on the 17th. So it's just been in a state of activity all week. As far as hurricane activity, Larry made landfall in Canada, which I found really, really interesting. I would love to hear from somebody who has more experience with how often Canada gets hit by hurricanes, because it takes really, really warm water to produce hurricane strength activity. Typically up in Canada, you're dealing with much colder waters. So I would love to know, is this an unusual thing? Is this something that happens often? Because Larry came in as a class 1 hurricane on the 11th. Nicholas also made landfall here in southeast Texas and hit Louisiana as well. That was happening down in Galveston. It was interesting to see because I'm actually not too far away from that area. But, you know, we didn't even have any rain from it. So it's really interesting how very major things can be happening not far away and you don't even know like what's going on. If we didn't have the global communications and things that we do, you would just be like, you would have no idea. I find that rather fascinating. All right, asteroid activity. 2021 RRS, newly discovered asteroid, flew by Earth at a distance of 49,250 miles. So in spatial terms, that is not far enough away for comfort. It's expected to have a diameter of 18 to 42 foot wide. So that's really a huge gap. You'd think they could get that down smaller. A fireball also exploded in the atmosphere over Spain. It was pretty significant sized asteroid that came in. Everything's okay. No ground trauma from it, but that was definitely seen in the night skies happening. We had some major thunderstorms and hail incidents. In Michigan, golf ball size hail fell on the 13th. Argentina had baseball size hail on the 13th. And Spain had localized hail and thunderstorms. And it turned roads into like these icy rivers of just hail and flooding. That happened on the 16th. So definitely some interesting things going on. As far as fires, looks like for the whole across the globe, it is on the decline. However, the Dixie Fire in California is still burning. It has been burning since July 13th, and it burned 960,000 acres all by itself. Okay, so tornado hit Turkey. It was 100 meters in diameter from the Black Sea. And then we had some crazy earthquake activity. A 6.2 hit Chile. And honestly, I think this uptick in earthquake activity was because of the instability of our solar activity that came in. So I think there's a major correlation going on there. But a 6.2 hit Chile at the Argentina border. That's a big one. There was an earthquake swarm at the Canary Islands in Spain. magma intrusion under the volcano. On the 14th, 329 earthquakes hit our planet that were a 2.5 magnitude or higher. The most notable of these were a 5.1 on the Solomon Islands, a 5.6 in Indonesia, a 5.2 in Samoa, and a 5.1 in Chile. There was also 332 earthquakes 2.2 or higher. This was on the 15th. There was 332. So on the 14th, there was 329. On the 15th, there was 332. The most significant of those were a 5.3 in New Zealand, a 5.5 in China, and a 5.2 times 4 of them. So there was 4 of those in the South Sandwich Islands. And there was a 5.0 in New Zealand and a 5.2 in Indonesia. On the 16th, a 6.0 hit the Sichuan province of China, killing 3 and injuring 88. On the 16th, there was also 345 earthquakes magnitude 2.0 or higher. A 5.0 and a 5.6 in Alaska, a 5.0 in South Fiji, 5.3 in Japan, and a 5.0 and a 5.3 in the South Sandwich Islands. Then again, on the 17th, there was 330 earthquakes 2.2 or higher. There's a 5.0 in Russia, a 5.3 in the Solomon Islands, 5.8 at Vanuatu, and a 5.0 in the Solomon Islands. So crazy amount of earthquake activities, and really what I have to attribute it to is the fact that when we have that kind of instability activity from the sun, it definitely has an effect on our magma and causes crazy things to happen. Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for being with me. If you're coming out to prepper camp, we'll see you next weekend. And if not, you'll get to hear all about it the week after that. So until next time, remember, dream, survive, thrive.
Thank you for joining Sarah and Chen for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster at www.authorsarahfhathaway.com. If you love the Changing Earth series and podcast, become a supporter while you're there.